reading the Ramcharitamanas. This is our 51st week of reading, and we're in a section where Lord Shiva is relating to Uma or Parvati the story of Kakabushundi and Garuda, and this portion continues from last week. You are an omniscient knower of truth, having reached beyond the darkness of ignorance, intelligent, amiable, straight in your dealings, and a storehouse of wisdom, dispassion, and realization. Above all, you are a beloved servant of Sri Rama, the Lord of the Raghus. Yet, where did you get this form of a crow? Dear sir, explain all this to me clearly. Also tell me, my master, where did you get this lovely lake of Sri Rama's exploits? O good bird, my lord, I have heard it from Shiva himself that you do not perish even during the Mahapralaya, that is the great dissolution when Brahma himself retires into the Lord's body after completing 100 years of his existence, that is 100 Brahma years. The divine Lord Shiva would never utter an idle word, and therefore my mind is in doubt. My Lord, the whole universe with all its animate and inanimate beings, including the Nagas, human beings and gods, is an intended victim of death. The time spirit, which destroys countless universes, is ever mighty and irresistible. How is it that the most formidable time spirit has no power over you? Tell me, my gracious Lord, if it is a glory of spiritual insight or a feat of yoga. O Lord, my infatuation and delusion disappeared the moment I visited your hermitage. Tell me in a loving spirit, my Lord, how did all this happen? Uma, continues Lord Shiva, the crow or Kakabushundi, rejoiced to hear Garuda's words and replied with utmost affection. Blessed, blessed indeed is your intellect. O enemy of serpents, your question is very pleasing to me. On hearing your loving and agreeable question, I have been reminded of many previous births. I shall now narrate the whole story at full length. Dear Garuda, listen to it attentively with all reverence. The muttering of prayers, austere penance, performing sacrifices, subjugation of mind and the senses, undertaking sacred vows, charity, dispassion, right judgment, yoga and realization. The fruit of all these is devotion to the feet of Sri Ram, the Lord of the Raghus. Without this, no one can attain lasting peace. It was in this body that I was blessed with devotion to Sri Rama. Hence, it is so very dear to me. Everyone naturally loves that through which one has attained one's object. It is a sound maxim, O enemy of serpents, approved by the Vedas and the saints to endorse it, that love should be shown to the meanest creature if we come to know it to be our greatest friend. Silk, for instance, is the product of a worm, and from it we have beautiful silken textiles. That is why everyone tends the worm like one's own life, even though it is most impure. The real self-interest of every living creature lies in cultivating devotion to Sri Rama's feet in thought, word, and deed. That body alone is sacred, and that alone is blessed, in which one is able to worship the hero of the Raghu's line. The wise and the learned never extol him who is hostile to Sri Rama, even though he may acquire a body as exalted as that of Brahma, the Creator himself. Devotion to Sri Rama took root in my heart in this very body. Hence I hold it supremely dear, my master. Although my death depends on my own will, I refuse to quit this body, because as the Vedas declare, adoration of the Lord is not possible without a corporeal frame. At first, infatuation gave me much trouble. So long as I remained indifferent to Sri Rama, I never had a restful sleep. Through a number of births, I practiced yoga, that is concentration of mind, japa, or muttering of prayers, austere penance and charity, and performed sacrifices and other acts of various kinds. Which species is there in this world, O Lord of the winged creatures, in which I have not at some point been born during my round of births? I have had experience of all kinds of pursuits, my Lord, but I was never happy as I am now. I recollect many previous existences, my Lord, in which, by Shiva's grace, my understanding was not clouded by infatuation. Listen, O Lord of the feathered kingdom. I now proceed to narrate the story of my very first birth within my memory, which is sure to engender in the heart of the listener love for the Lord's feet, which is the remedy of all afflictions. In a former kalpa, or round of creation, my Lord, the world was passing through the Kali Yuga, the hotbed of sin in which men and women were all steeped in unrighteousness and acted contrary to the Vedas. In that Kali Yuga, I was born in the city of Ayodhya and got the body of a Shudra, a member of the laboring and artisan classes. A devotee of Lord Shiva in thought, word and deed, I was a reviler of other gods and conceited too. Intoxicated with pride of self, I was most loquacious and savage of purpose and carried an enormous load of hypocrisy in my heart. Even though I dwelt in the capital of Sri Rama, the Lord of the Raghus, I failed to know even an iota of its glory then. Now I have come to know the greatness of Ayodhya. Thus has it been sung by the Vedas, Tantras, and Puranas that whoever has resided in Ayodhya in any birth whatsoever surely becomes a votary of Sri Rama. A man comes to know the glory of Ayodhya only when Sri Rama, bow in hand, takes up his abode in his heart. The particular age of Kali was terrible indeed. O enemy of serpents, every man and woman was given over to sin. Every virtue had been engulfed by the sins of Kali, and good books had disappeared. Impostors had promulgated a number of creeds which they had invented out of their own wit. The people had fallen a prey to delusion, and all pious acts had been swallowed by greed. Now listen, all wise mount of Sri Hari, while I describe a few characteristics of Kali. That is the Kali Yuga. No one follows the duties of one's own caste, and the 4 ashramas or stages of life also disappear. Every man and woman takes delight in revolting against the Vedas. The Brahmanas sell the Vedas, the kings bleed their subjects. No one respects the injunction of the Vedas. The right course for every individual is that which one takes a fancy to. A man of erudition is he who plays the braggart. Whoever launches spurious undertakings and is given over to hypocrisy, him does everyone call a saint. He alone is clever who robs another of his wealth. He who puts up false appearances is an ardent follower of the established usage. He who is given to lying and is clever at joking is spoken of as a man of parts in the Kali age. He alone who is reprobate and has abandoned the path of the Vedas is a man of wisdom and dispassion in the Kali age. He alone who has grown big nails and long locks of matted hair is a renowned ascetic in the Kali age. They alone who put on an unsightly garb and ornaments, eat anything and everything, no matter whether it is worth eating or not, are ascetics. They alone are perfect men, and they are worth adoring in the Kali age. They who are of maleficent conduct, are held in great esteem, and they alone are worthy of honor. Even so, they alone who are babblers in thought, word, and deed, are orators in the Kali age. Dominated by women, my Lord, all men dance to their tune like a monkey controlled by its trainer. Shudras instruct the twice-born in spiritual wisdom and wearing the sacred thread, except the worst type of gifts. All men are given over to sensuality and greed and irascible too, and are hostile to the gods, the Brahmanas, the Vedas, as well as to the saints. Unfortunate wives desert their accomplished and handsome husband and bestow their heart on their paramour. Wives having their husband alive have no ornament on their person, while widows adorn themselves in the latest style. The disciple and the preceptor severally resemble a deaf man and a blind man. The one would not listen, while the other cannot see. A spiritual guide who robs his disciple of money but fails to rid him of his sorrow is cast into a terrible hell. Parents call their children and teach them such means as they may fill their belly. Men and women folk talk of nothing else other than the knowledge of Brahma. While in their greed, they would kill a Brahmana, or for the matter of fact, even their own spiritual guide for the sake of a single shell. Shudras argue with the twice-born. Are we in any way inferior to you? A good Brahmana is he who knows the truth of Brahma and defiantly glower at them. They alone who are covetous of another's wife and are clever at wiles and steeped in delusion, malice, and worldly attachment are enlightened men swearing by the identity of the individual soul with Brahma. Such is the practice I have seen in every Kali age. Doomed themselves, such people bring ruin to those rare souls who tread the path of virtue. They who find fault with the Vedas by dint of logic are condemned to each hell for a whole kalpa or a whole cycle. People of the lowest grade in society, such as oilmen, potters, and the outcast, those who cook and feed on the flesh of a dog, the kiratas, the kolas, and the distillers of spirituous liquors, get their heads shaved and enter the order of sannyasa or renunciation when their wife is no more in this world and they have lost their household property. They allow themselves to be worshipped by the Brahmanas and bring ruin to themselves here as well as hereafter. As for the Brahmanas, they are unlettered, grasping, lascivious, reprobate, and stupid, and marry low-caste women of a lewd character. Shudras, on the other hand, practice japa, the muttering of prayers, and austere penance, undertake sacred vows of various kinds, and expound the Puranas from an exalted seat. All men follow a course of conduct of their own imagination. The endless variety of wrongdoing cannot be described in words. In the age of Kali, there ensues a confusion of castes due to promiscuous intermarriages, and everyone infringes the sacred laws. Men penetrate sins and reap suffering, terror, disease, sorrow, and desolation. Overcome by delusion, they walk not in the path of devotion to Sri Hari, conjoined with dispassion and wisdom, a path which has the approval of the Vedas, and invent diverse creeds of their own. The so-called recluses build themselves houses and furnish them at considerable expense. Dispassion is no more to be seen in them, the same having been wiped out by their sensuality. The so-called ascetics grow wealthy and householders go penniless. The freaks of the Kali age, dear Garuda, are beyond all telling. Men drive out a well-born and virtuous wife and bring home servant girl, casting to the winds all good usage. Sons respect their father and mother only so long as they have not seen the face of their wife. From the time they take fancy to their wife's kinsfolk, they begin to look upon their own people as their enemies. Kings get addicted to sin and cease to have anything to do with piety. They ever persecute their subjects by inflicting unmerited punishment on them. The meanest churl, if he is rich, is accounted noble. A Brahmana is known only by his sacred thread, and an ascetic by his naked body. He who refuses to recognize the Vedas and the Puranas is a true saint and a servant of Sri Hari in the Kali age. Poets seen in large numbers, but the munificent who reward them are seldom heard of. Those who find fault with others' virtues can be had in any number, but no one possessing virtues. In the Kali age, famines are of frequent occurrence. For want of food grains, people perish miserably en masse. Listen, Lord of the winged creatures, in the age of Kali, duplicity, perversity, hypocrisy, malice, heresy, pride, infatuation, concupiscence, and arrogance, etc., pervade the whole universe. Men practice japa, that is the muttering of prayers, austere penance, and charity, perform sacrifices, and undertake vows with some unholy motive. The gods rain not upon the earth, and food grains sown in the soil do not germinate. Women have no ornament except their tresses and have an enormous appetite. Though miserable for want of money, they are rich in attachment of various kinds. Though hankering after happiness, they love not piety, stupid as they are. Though they are poor in wits, their mind is hardened and knows no tenderness. As for men, they are tormented with diseases and find no enjoyment anywhere. They are conceited and contend with others without any rhyme or reason. Men's life is short, extending to not more than a few years. Yet in their pride they reckon on surviving the end of creation. The age of Kali has driven men mad. No one respects the sanctity even of one's sister or daughter. There is no contentment, no discernment, nor composure. People of all classes, whether high or low, have taken to begging. envy, harsh words, and covetousness are rampant, while evenness of mind is absent. People are smitten with bereavement and deep sorrow. The duties and rules of conduct prescribed for the four orders of society and stages in life are neglected. Self-control, charity, compassion, wisdom disappear, while stupidity and fraud multiply to a large extent. Men and women all pamper their body, while slanderers are diffused all over the world. Listen, O enemy of serpents, the Kali age is a storehouse of impurities and vices, but it has many virtues too. Final emancipation is possible in this age too, without any exertion. Moreover, the same goal which is reached through worship of God, performance of sacrifices, or practice of yoga in the Satya Yuga, Treta and Dwapara, men are able to attain through the name of Sri Hari in the Kali age. In the Satya Yuga, everyone is possessed of mystic powers, and wise too. Hence, in that age, men cross the ocean of mundane existence by meditating on Sri Hari. In Treta, men perform sacrifices of various kinds and cross the ocean of metapsychosis by dedicating their actions to the Lord. In the Dwapara age, men cross the ocean of worldly existence by adorning to the feet of Sri Rama, there being no other means to do it. In the Kali age, however, men reach the end of the mundane existence simply by singing Sri Hari's praises. In the age of Kali, neither yoga, that is concentration of mind, nor the performance of sacrifices nor spiritual wisdom is of any avail. One's only hope lies in hymning Sri Rama's praises. Giving up all other hopes, whosoever worships Sri Rama and fondly chants his praises undoubtedly crosses the ocean of transmigration. The power of the name is thus manifest in the Kali age. The Kali age possesses another sacred virtue. In this age, projected acts of virtuous nature are virtues, but those of evil propensity are not sins. No other age can compare with the Kali age, provided a man has faith in its virtue. For in this age, one can easily cross the ocean of transmigration simply by singing Sri Rama's holy praises. Piety has four well-known pillars, of which one is predominant in the Kali age. Charity practiced in any way conduces to one's spiritual good. Prompted by Sri Rama's delusive potency, the characteristic of all four yugas manifests themselves in everyone's heart every day. The presence of pure sattva, or harmony, evenness of mind, spiritual insight, and the feeling of vivacity in the heart are the effects of Satya Yuga. Abundance of sattva, with a slight mixture of rajas, attachment to action, and happiness of every kind are the characteristics of the Treta Yuga. Much rajas, little sattva, and some tamas, with a feeling mingled of joy and fear in the heart, are the distinguishing features of Dwapara. A large portion of tamas, with slight mixture of rajas and antagonism everywhere, are the effects of Kali. The wise discern the characteristics of the different yugas in their mind and, forswearing unrighteousness, devote themselves to piety. The characteristics of the time spirit have no effect on him who is excessively fond of Sri Rama's feet. The deception practiced by a juggler, O king of the birds, is formidable indeed, but the tricks of a juggler cannot deceive his servant. The good and evil, which are the creation of Sri Hari's delusive potency, cannot be eliminated except through the worship of Sri Hari. Bearing this in mind and forswearing all desire, one should adore Sri Hari. In that particular age of Kali, O Lord of the winged creatures, I lived in Ayodhya for many years till a famine occurred, when, stricken by adversity, I had to move to another place. Listen, O enemy of serpents. I went to Ujjain miserable, downcast, penniless, and afflicted. When some time had elapsed, I had acquired some wealth, and after that I began worshipping Lord Shambhu at that very place. There was a Brahmana there who constantly worshipped Lord Shiva according to the Vedic rites and had no other occupation. He was an extremely pious soul and a knower of the highest truth, a votary of Lord Shambhu, but no reviler of Sri Hari. I served him, though, with a guileful heart. The Brahmana was very kind-hearted and an abode of piety. Seeing me outwardly so humble, my lord, the Brahmana taught me as his own son. The great Brahmana imparted to me a mystic formula sacred to Lord Shambhu and gave me every kind of good advice. I used to go to a temple of Lord Shiva and repeat the formula there with unbounded ostentation and conceit in my heart. A wretch impure of mind, low-born and overcome by infatuation, I was filled with jealousy at the very sight of a servant of Sri Hari or a Brahmana, and hated God Vishnu, distressed to see my conduct. My preceptor would admonish me every day, but on hearing his admonition I burnt with rage. Can sober counsel appeal to a hypocrite? One day my preceptor called me and taught me wisdom in every possible way. The sole reward, my son, of worshipping Lord Shiva is uninterrupted devotion to Sri Rama's feet. Shiva himself, as well as Brahma, the creator, dear son, adore Sri Rama. Of what account then is a vile human being? Do you hope to attain happiness, O wretched soul, by harboring ill will to him whose feet are loved by Brahma and Shiva himself? When I heard my Guru speak of Lord Hara as the votary of Sri Hari, my heart, O Lord of the feathered kingdom, was all on fire. Vile of descent as I was, the little learning that I had acquired turned my head, even as a serpent becomes all the more poisonous when fed on milk. Proud, perverse, wretched, and low-born, I played mischief to my Guru day and night. My Guru, however, was too tender-hearted to have the least anger in him. On the other hand, he gave me good advice time after time. The first thing a vile fellow does is to kill and destroy the very man who has been instrumental in exalting him. Listen, brother, smoke which is produced by fire extinguishes the latter when it attains to the dignity of a cloud. The dust lying on the road is held in contempt and is ever trodden underfoot by all. But when carried aloft by the wind, it first envelops the air itself and then descends on the eyes or diadems of king. Listen, O Lord of the winged creatures, realizing this state of things, the wise shun the company of vile men. Seers and learned men have declared this maxim: it is good neither to quarrel with a wretch nor to make friends with him. One should always remain aloof from him, my master. A wicked fellow should be avoided even as a dog. Vicious as I was, with a heart full of falsehood and perversity, the Guru's admonition did not appeal to me, even though it was wholesome. One day I was repeating Shiva's name in a temple sacred to Lord Hara when my Guru came in, but in my pride I did not rise to greet him. He was too gracious to say anything, neither did he feel the least resentment in his heart, but the grievous sin of showing disrespect to a Guru was more than the great Lord Shiva could tolerate. An ethereal voice proceeded from the temple itself. You wretched and conceited fool, even though your preceptor has no anger in him, he is very tender-hearted and possessed of true and perfect wisdom. Yet, O fool, I must pronounce a curse on you, for any transgression of propriety is loathsome to me. If I do not punish you, O wretch, the sanctity of my Vedic laws will be violated. The fools who bear malice against their Guru are cast into the hell named Raurava for a myriad yugas. After they take birth in the subhuman species and suffer torment for 10,000 years of successive existence, since you remain rooted to your seat like a python, O vile wretch, take the form of a snake, for your mind is steeped in sin and condemned to that vile state. O vilest of the vile, go and take up your abode in the hollow of some huge tree. The Guru raised a piteous wail as he heard Lord Shiva's terrible cause, and when he saw me trembling with fear, deep agony possessed his soul. Reflecting on my awful fate, the Brahmana prostrated before Lord Shiva, and with joined palms and his voice choked with emotion, he prayed as follows. I adore you, the guardian of the southeast quarter and ruler of the whole universe, eternal bliss personified, the omnipresent and all-pervading Brahma manifest in the form of Vedas. I worship Lord Shiva, shining in his own glory, devoid of material attributes, undifferentiated, desireless, all-pervading consciousness, having nothing to wrap himself except ether, or enveloping ether itself. I bow to the Supreme Lord, who is devoid of form, transcendent and extra-cosmic, beyond speech, understanding, and sense separation. Terrible yet gracious, the seed of the mystic syllable Om, the ruler of Kailasha, the devourer of the great time spirit, and the abode of virtues. I adore the all-merciful Shankara, the universal Lord who is loved by all and yet unfathomable, who is possessed of a form white as a snow-clad Himalaya and radiant with beauty of a myriad cupids, whose head sparkles with the lovely stream of the Ganga, whose brow is adorned by the crescent moon and neck coiled by serpents, who has tremulous pendants hanging from his earlobes, is possessed of beautiful eyebrows and large eyes, who has a cheerful countenance and a blue speck on his throat, and who has a lion skin wrapped around his waist and a garland of skulls around his neck. I take refuge in Bhavani's spouse, the Supreme Lord, terrible, exalted, intrepid, indivisible, unborn, and invested with the glory of the myriad suns, who roots out the threefold agony and holds a trident in his hand, and who is accessible only through love. Beyond number, ever blissed, bringing about universal destruction at the end of each round of creation, a source of perpetual delight to the virtuous, slayer of the demon Tripura, consciousness and bliss personified, dispeller of delusion, be propitious, my Lord, be propitious, O destroyer of Cupid. So long as they worship not the lotus feet of Uma's Lord, there is no happiness, nor peace, nor cessation of suffering for men either in this world or in the next. Therefore, be propitious, my Lord, dwelling as you do in the heart of all living beings. I know not yoga, that is concentration, nor japa, that is muttering of prayers, nor ritual. I simply bow to you at all times and at every moment. O Shambhu, pray, protect me, my Lord, miserable and afflicted by sufferings attendant on old age and birth and death as I am, O Lord Shambhu. This hymn of 8 verses was uttered by the Brahmana in order to propitiate Lord Hara. Sri Shambhu is pleased with those men who devoutly repeat it. The all-wise Shiva heard the Brahmana's prayer and saw his devotion. An ethereal voice issued from the temple again. Ask for a boon, O great Brahmana. If my Lord, you are pleased with me, and if my master, you are affectionate to the meek, first bless me with devotion to your feet, and then grant me another boon. Overcome by your Maya, delusive power, the stupid jiva, individual soul, constantly wanders from one womb to another in error. Therefore, O merciful Lord, be not angry with him. Now be gracious to this creature, O Shankara, compassionate as you are to the humble, so that your curse may prove to be a blessing to him not long afterwards. Now do that which may bring him supreme blessedness, O fountain of mercy. On hearing the Brahmana's words, steeped as they were in charity, the heavenly voice replied, so be it. Although he has committed a grievous sin and in my wrath have pronounced a curse on him, yet realizing your goodness, I shall do him a favor. O holy Brahmana, they who are forgiving disposition and beneficent and are as dear to me as Sri Rama, the slayer of the demon Khara himself. Nonetheless, O Brahmana, my curse shall not go in vain. This fellow shall surely pass through 1,000 incarnations, but the terrible agony involved in each successive birth and death shall not affect him in the least. Turning to me, the voice continued, Hear, O Shudra, my authentic word. In none of your births shall your awareness of previous existences leave you. In the first place, you were born in the capital of Sri Rama, the Lord of the Raghus, and besides that, you set your heart on my worship. Due to the miraculous power of the holy city, and by my grace, devotion to Sri Rama shall spring upon in your bosom. Now, brother, Hear my solemn declaration. A vow to serve the Brahmanas is the surest means of propitiating Sri Hari. Insult the Brahmanas no more and reckon a saint to be on par with the infinite Lord himself. Even he who does not succumb to the strokes of Indra's thunderbolt, my own mighty trident, the rod of death, and the terrible discus of Sri Hari is consumed by the fire of hostility with the Brahmanas. Treasure up this counsel in your heart, and there will be nothing in this world which may be too difficult for you to attain. I bestow one more blessing on you. You shall have unobstructed access everywhere. The Guru rejoiced to hear the word of Lord Shiva, as conveyed through the ethereal voice, and cried Amen. And after admonishing me, he returned home, with the image of Lord Shambhu's feet impressed upon his heart. Driven by my fate, I went to the Vindhya mountains and was, on giving up the ghost, reborn as a serpent, and again, when sometimes elapsed, I easily dropped that form. Whatever form I assumed, O Mount of Sri Hari, dropped again with utmost ease, even as a man would cast off worn-out clothes and put on a new set. Lord Shiva vindicated the Vedic law, while I was spared the agony involved in the rounds of birth and death. In this way, O Lord of the winged creatures, I assumed various forms, but my understanding never left me. Whatever form I assumed, whether of an irrational being, God, or man, I continued to adore Sri Rama even in that form. Yet one thing ever stung my conscience. My Guru's mild and amiable disposition I could never forget. The last body I got was that of a Brahmana, which the Vedas and Puranas declare as difficult even for the gods to attain. Even in that incarnation, whenever I joined the other boys for play, I would enact all the pastimes of Sri Rama alone. As I grew up, my father gave me lessons in secular subjects. I tried to understand things, listened to the lessons, and reflected on them, yet they failed to attract my mind. All worldly cravings left my soul. I was solely absorbed in the thought of Sri Rama's feet. Tell me, O Lord of the feathered creation, is there anyone so wretched as to give up a cow of plenty and tend a she-ass? Overwhelmed with love, I had no charm left for anything, and my father was tired of coaching me. When both my father and mother died, I withdrew to the forest in order to worship the protector of his servants. In the forest, whenever I met any great sage, I visited his hermitage and bowed my head to him. I would then ask him to recount Sri Rama's virtues and listened with delight to what they told me. O Lord of the winged creatures, in this way I went about listening to the recital of Sri Hari's praises. By Shambhu's grace, my movements were unchecked everywhere. The three types of ardent seeking, that is, those for progeny, wealth, and fame, left me, and one solitary longing grew to inordinate proportions in my heart. I shall deem the object of my birth accomplished only when I behold Sri Rama's lotus feet, I said to myself. Every sage I interrogated observed, God represents the totality of created beings. But the view which holds God as impersonal did not favor with me, and the love I bore in my heart for the embodied Brahma grew from more to more. Even as I recalled the words of my erstwhile preceptor, my mind conceived a fondness for Sri Rama's feet, and I went about singing the praises of Sri Rama, with a love which gathered new strength every moment. On a peak of the Mount Meru, in the shade of a banyan tree, sat the sage Lomasha. On seeing him, I bowed at his feet and addressed him in the humblest strain. When the gracious sage heard my meek and gentle address, O king of birds, he politely inquired, for what purpose have you come, O Brahmana? Thereupon I replied, O fountain of mercy, you are omniscient and sagacious. Tell me, blessed one, how to worship the embodied Supreme Spirit. Thereupon the great sage recounted with a reverence a few virtues of Sri Rama, the Lord of the Raghus. O Lord of the feathered creation, but himself devoted to the knowledge of Brahma, the Absolute, and knowing me to be the fittest person to be initiated into such knowledge, the enlightened sage began a sermon on Brahma, the unborn, the one without a second and without attributes, the ruler of the heart, the inner controller. Incomprehensible, desireless, without name or form, attainable only through realization, indivisible and incomparable, beyond the mind and the senses, immaculate and indestructible, immovable, unlimited and all blissful. You are identical with Brahma referred to above. No more difference exists between him and you than between a sheet of water and the ripples on its surface. So declare the Vedas. The sage instructed me in various ways, but the truth that the individual soul is identical with the attributeless Brahma did not appeal to my heart. Bowing my head at his feet, I submitted again. Kindly tell me how to worship the embodied Brahma, O Lord of the sages. My mind takes delight in the worship of Sri Rama, even as a fish rejoices in water. How then can I exist without it? O wise Lord of the sages, be gracious, therefore, to teach me the method where I may be able to behold the Lord of the Raghus with my own eyes. Having feasted my eyes on the king of Ayodhya, I will listen to your discourse on the attributeless Brahma. The sage once more recited the incomparable story of Sri Hari, but demolishing the doctrine that the Supreme Spirit does appear in an embodied form. He established the proposition that he is ever without attributes. Thereupon, I would set aside the view that God is ever attributeless and establish with great obstinacy the doctrine that he takes an embodied form. When I thus entered into a hot discussion with him, signs of resentment appeared on the sage's person. Listen, my lord, insolence carried to an excess rouses passion, even in the breast of an enlightened soul. Too much friction will produce fire even without sandalwood, even out of sandalwood. I'll read that one again. Too much friction will produce fire even out of sandalwood. Again and again in the heat of passion, the sage expatiated on spiritual wisdom, while I sat still and put myself various questions. Can there be anger without duality, or duality without ignorance? Can an individual soul, dull, finite, and subject to Maya, ever be on par with God? Can suffering ensue from solicitude for others' well-being? Can anyone possessing the philosopher's stone suffer from want any longer? Can the malevolent be free from anxiety? Can the lustful escape obloquy? Can one's posterity survive even though one has persecuted the Brahmanas? Can one continue to perform actions with attachment even after attaining self-realization? Has anyone acquired sound wisdom while living in the company of the vicious? Can an adulterer attain a happy destiny? Can those who have realized God fall again into the ocean of transmigration? Can the revilers of Sri Hari be ever happy? Can a kingdom stand without the knowledge of statecraft? Can sins persist even after one has commenced narrating Sri Hari's exploits? Can one enjoy sacred renown without religious merit? And can anyone earn a bad reputation without a sin? Is there any gain as valuable as devotion to Sri Hari, which is glorified alike by saints as well as by the Vedas and the Puranas? And brother, is there any loss in the world as grievous as not adoring Sri Rama, even after obtaining a human body? Is there any other sin so bad as backbiting, or any virtue so great as compassion, O Mount of Sri Hari? In this way, I mentally advanced numberless arguments in my favor and did not listen to the sage's teaching with any reference. Again and again, I maintained the cause of the Saguna form of worship, the worship of an embodied deity, till at least the sage uttered these angry words. Fool, you refuse to accept the supreme lesson I've been imparting to you and indulge in endless arguments and counter-arguments. You have no credence to my authentic words, and like a crow, look upon everything with distrust. Fool, you are exceedingly self-opinionated. Therefore, you shall at once take the form of a crow, the pariah among birds. I bow to the curse pronounced by the sage, but felt neither alarmed nor humbled. I was immediately transformed into a crow. Thereupon, I bowed my head at the sage's feet again, and fixing my thoughts on Sri Rama, the jewel of the Raghu's line, joyfully took flight. O Ma, continues Lord Shankara, they who are devoted to Sri Rama's feet and are free from lust, vanity, and anger look upon the whole world as full of their Lord, against whom they can harbor animosity. Listen, O Lord of the winged creatures. The sage was in no way at fault. It is Sri Rama, the ornament of the Raghu's race, who prompts all hearts. The All-Merciful put my devotion to the test by clouding the sage's reason. When he came to know that I was his devoted servant in thought, word, and deed, the Lord abused the saint again. The Lord disabused the saint again. The sage was amazed at my extraordinary forbearance and the unique faith in Sri Rama's feet, and repenting again and again, politely called me back. He consoled me in every way, and then gladly imparted to me the formula sacred to Sri Rama. The gracious sage also taught me how to meditate on Sri Rama as a child. The form which I was thus taught to fix my thoughts upon, charming and delightful as it was, pleased me much. I have already told you the same. The sage detained me in his hermitage for some time, and then recited the Ramcharitamanas, the Manasa lake of Sri Rama's exploits, the book we've been reading. Having reverently repeated the story of the sage, then addressed me in the following gracious words. I discovered the secret and charming lake of Sri Rama's exploits, dear son, by the grace of Lord Shambhu. I have come to know that you are a beloved devotee of Sri Rama. Hence I recite to you in full. Never repeat it, dear child, in the presence of those whose heart is void of devotion to Sri Rama. The sage admonished me in various ways, and I lovingly bowed my head at his feet. The great sage touched my head and his lotus palm and gladly gave me his blessing. Henceforth, by my grace, devotion to Sri Rama shall ever abide in your heart and know no interruption. You shall ever be a favorite with Sri Rama and a storehouse of good qualities, free from pride, changing your form at will, and choosing your own time for death, and a repository of wisdom and dispassion. Nay, in whatever hermitage you live with your thought fixed on the Lord, ignorance will have no access within a radius of 8 miles from it. Jai Shri Ram. So that basically concludes our 51st week of reading the Ramcharitamanas. Next week will be our last and completes 1 year of doing the Parayan that we've been doing. Arati will start at 6 o'clock. We'll slowly remove some of these equipages here, and those of you who want can come up front. And there's also, as it's getting more chilly, there's some blankets in the boxes on either side if you want to take advantage of that. Hari Om.